I'm Duncan McLeod, and this is the TechCentral Show. Subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/TechCentral. And while you're at it, subscribe to our daily newsletter at techcentral.co.za/newsletter and get the latest tech news in your inbox at 5 a.m. every weekday morning. Now, we're going to be talking electric vehicles next with the head of Volvo in South Africa. In fact, Volvo has just launched what I think is one of the cheapest EVs, if not the cheapest in the South African market, the Ex30. To chat about that launch and the EV market in South Africa more broadly, I'd like to welcome Greg Maruszewski to the TechCentral studio now. Greg, welcome and thanks for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So Volvo's been very aggressive, probably one of the most aggressive motoring brands to switch away from or start moving away from ICE or internal combustion engines to electric vehicles. Why has the company been so aggressive in shifting to EVs?
I think it's a number of reasons. As you said, we were the first ones, I think, to make it public that we will stop selling cars which are not electric cars by 2030.
Yeah.
A couple of other manufacturers have gone since then. But the reasons why, the first one is care for the environment. I think it's pretty clear that the internal combustion engine, the emissions do cause harm to the environment. We can debate how much, but it does cause damage.
Sure.
And then the whole process of electrification and also advancement in the technologies really goes hand in hand with the electrical cars.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how long has, when was your first electric vehicle produced, and how long have you been selling EVs in South Africa for now?
Well, actually the first batch of electric cars goes back 10 or 12 years. It was a C30 in those days.
Okay.
It was a hatchback with two doors. There was a limited number of cars. I think they were all sold, or not sold actually, they were leased in Switzerland. So that was a trial run into the electric world. But the XC40 single motor and the twin motor were really the first ones globally.
Right.
And we started selling them in January last year.
Okay, January. Okay, so it hasn't been in the market that long, 18 months or so. How has market reception been?
It's difficult to say. I think it's been great, but the launch of the electric cars for us and for the other manufacturers as well, it came together at the same time that we had supply constraints because of semiconductor shortages, of COVID, factory lockdowns, things like that. So it's difficult to say what the real demand is. I know that we've sold every single car that we've got. The stock is starting to build up now in June, July. We'll get more cars. So I think then we'll be able to judge what the real demand is.
Yeah.
But the reception we've got so far, I think it's been very positive.
But you must interact with customers on a daily basis when you go into showrooms and you talk to your clients or prospective clients and they're walking around looking at all the Volvo options there. What are they asking you about EVs? Are they saying, well, maybe I should consider this now? Or are they saying, no, just give me the petrol car?
I think the people who are in our showrooms already know about the electric cars. So they want the electric car. They know everything about it. There's no negatives about it. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about electric cars in general from the public.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that us as an industry, we need to work on.
Okay. What are some of those misconceptions?
Typical for South Africa, load shedding.
Right. That's one of my questions.
Well, is it an issue? It will be better without it.
Yeah.
But if you speak to the people who drive electric cars, they park it in the garage in the evening, plug it in, by the morning it's charged.
Yeah.
Whether it's charged in the afternoon, in the evening, late at night, early morning or late morning, it doesn't matter. At 6 o'clock in the morning it will be charged. If you go to a stage where there's no power for 12 hours or longer at any one time, as some of the doomsday predictions are, then it might become an issue. But right now, with 4 hours, the car will be charged.
Yeah.
And we never charge in the car from empty to full every night. So we just have to get, I spoke about education. When we fill up the car, we fill it up when it's empty or close to empty. With electric cars, we should charge it whenever we can.
Yes.
So when you get home, plug it in.
A lot of people are going solar now as well. With Eskom's troubles, whenever I do the commute from the office to home, I notice every day there's a house with new solar installation on the top of it. Are your customers having conversations with you about how they can integrate their home solar solutions into their mobility, into their car, and are you able to provide advice to customers around what they should be doing in terms of solar? So
we've got a couple of customers who've gone that route. To me, right now the solar technology is not there to make it possible or feasible to charge. You can do it, but you need a lot of panels.
Yeah.
And most of the time we charge the car at night, and there's no sun at night, so you need batteries, and batteries are expensive. So that technology will improve, but right now I don't think it's a feasible one.
Yeah.
But when you talk about solar and batteries, what we will have with our new EX90 coming out is bi-directional charging. So actually, the battery that's in the car, you can use that to power up the house. So it's almost a reverse of powering the car from the house, you can power the house from the car.
Right. So you wouldn't need to buy one of these massive inverter systems with batteries that you mount in your garage, on your garage
Correct.
wall, for example. Your car could power everything.
So you need a much smaller battery. So you still need an inverter to process all that. But then instead of having a battery that will last you, a night plus a day, that if it's cloudy, you can use the car as a backup for that. So you just need a much smaller battery.
Yeah. Our electric charging infrastructure in South Africa is not as developed as it is in, say, Europe or North America. There has been some active rollout in the last, particularly in the last year or so. What is Volvo's involvement in rolling out and deploying EV charging infrastructure in South Africa? Are you working with partners? Do you have your own charging infrastructure that you've deployed? And what are your plans over the next years to make more of this infrastructure available to EV drivers?
So I think the first comment, that's not well developed. If you look at the ratio of chargers to cars, we've got one of the lowest ratios, which is the best. Not because we have so many chargers, we have so few cars.
Right.
So that's the one.
So we don't actually need all that charging infrastructure right now.
Well, we need it because of how big the country is and where they should all go. We have about 300 charging stations right now.
Something like that, yeah.
Nationally. From Volvo's side, we don't think that having our own is the way to go. You don't have manufacturers having their own petrol stations, for example. So it will become a commodity. Like petrol is now, electricity will become a commodity very soon, I think. So we think that I know there are investors who are waiting to invest into the infrastructure. They're just waiting for some clarity on what the demand is. And I think the obvious question is what's the government going to do, if anything? And I think once the investors have got that clarity, then they can make their own sums, and that investment will go into the infrastructure.
Okay. Well, let's talk about government, because I've had CEOs of other car companies sitting in that very chair you're sitting in now, decrying the high import duties on cars. I think it's ad valorem duties and other taxes, which in effect mean that EVs in South Africa cost significantly more than ICE-based vehicles in terms of taxes. It's just adding to the cost, and it's detracting from the ability of car manufacturers to sell these vehicles in the South African market. Just give us an overview of what the issue is and what you think should be done about it.
Okay. So first of all, on taxation. The taxation on EV cars is the same as on ICE cars. The difference comes in that European-sourced cars, ICE cars, have got a reduction of 7%. So if you buy a petrol diesel car manufactured in Europe, it will be brought in at 18%. If it's a petrol car or a diesel car or electric car from anywhere else in the world, it's 25%. The regulation, when it was drafted, didn't take into account full electric car. So that's why the exemption of the 7% doesn't work on electric cars. Not because it was excluded, but it wasn't included because when it was drafted, nobody spoke about the electric cars.
Right.
Then ad valorem, the higher the value of the car, the higher the ad valorem, so that adds to it as well, obviously.
Right.
And then a lot of the countries that have got high progress in terms of selling the electric cars, I think all have had some governmental support, whether it's taxes or there's a number of ways to do it. The South African government has said that they will not support the demand side. They will support the manufacturing side, although I don't think they've announced anything yet.
No.
So, that's way overdue, because you can't just announce
What's taking
it today.
so long, do you think?
I think the one thing is that the government's got no money.
Okay.
And supporting EV cars is not a priority. I think if you go to the demand side, if you're supporting a car with import duties, you're losing out on the import duties, which is a significant amount for the government, but then you're also losing out on the fuel levies, which are significant in this country. So it's a double whammy.
Yeah.
And then the third one, possibly, politically, it's not a good decision to support expensive cars while there are more pressing needs in the country.
That's true. But what would you like to see? I mean, as Volvo, how would you like to see the rules change?
I mean, from our side, we would like to see a parity of pricing between petrol cars and ICE cars and EV cars. We're getting there, but any support we will welcome, just to have the introduction of electric cars that much faster.
Sure. Volvo doesn't have a factory in South Africa. It imports all of its...
Correct. We used to, but not anymore.
Oh, you used to? Okay. Where was your factory?
It was together with Ford in the Silverton plant.
Oh, okay.
So initially, actually, we had a SKD plant in Botswana when it was still a private importer. And then early 2000s, when Volvo Cars South Africa opened, we moved our operations to the Ford office in Silverton, and for a couple of years there was a plant assembling there, or line assembling there.
Making what?
It was the S40s and I think the V40s as well.
Oh, interesting. And was the market just not big enough to justify a local factory?
It was a very complicated process. So I wasn't here when it was discontinued.
Sure.
But with small volumes of cars and a high level of options, you couldn't always build the car that the customer wanted. So a lot of the cars ended up being imported simply because we couldn't build it locally because of the option not being available or things like that, different colors.
Do you think you might ever come back to making cars in South Africa? Or is
never say never, but I don't think it'll be anytime soon.
Won't be soon.
We are opening up a plant in Slovakia now. Yeah. So that's the next one on the line. And it's right now it's not in cards.
Not a high priority. Just take me through where Volvo is positioned in the market. Who is the typical Volvo buyer?
I think somebody looking for a premium car, probably understated versus some of our premium competitors. Yeah. Somebody who cares about family, environment, and just looking for a good quality, honest car. It's not so ostentatious.
Not flashy. Yeah, a little more conservative leaning. Okay.
And we can actually see that in our customers. Yeah. The customer base, you can call them boring customers, but when it comes to finance risk and insurance risk, they're a lot lower than the average drivers. Yeah.
Interesting. And does it skew to an older audience as well? I know some of your newer models are quite funky, which I guess means Volvo is trying to tap into that younger audience, particularly with some of the new EV models, like the EX30.
The XC40 is also attracting a younger audience. Yeah. The C30 I mentioned early on, that was also targeted at a much younger audience. But yes, historically, middle-aged upwards.
Right.
But it's changing with the new cars.
And is that changing now with EVs coming in? Yeah. So what is Volvo's typical buyer in the future look like?
I think it'll be a lot younger, or probably start a lot younger. I don't think we'll lose the customers that we've got currently. Right. Those are they'll get older and older.
How brand loyal are Volvo customers? Will they keep buying Volvo until they die?
I think they're very loyal unless we upset them.
Oh, right. Yeah. So they won't take nonsense.
We try. Not always get it right.
Sure.
But we've seen the high loyalty of customers. And if we can sort out the problem quickly, that's not a problem. Every car will break down. So it's not the issue of the car breaking down or not. It's how you handle it.
Yeah. But Volvo is known for its quality and, it's not... You don't expect it to run into major mechanical problems every so often.
I think once it's serviced, it's a mechanical.
It's a reliable product, All right, take us through the EX30. You launched that last week or the week before last here in South Africa. Where exactly is this positioned in the market? How do you expect it to perform? And what should buyers expect in terms of performance? Okay,
so the EX30, we actually had a launch locally at the same time as the global launch.
I believe so, yes.
So we watched the global launch, followed straight away by a local one where we announced the prices, which were very well received, and then also the availability. So the cars will come, the first batch of cars for the dealers, and demo cars will be December, January. Customer cars will start arriving in March next year onwards. Okay. It's a very exciting car for us. It's the smallest SUV as you mentioned. It's also the lowest priced one. So I think that will do very well. I think we priced it aggressively versus other offers within the EV space.
So you're deliberately taking lower margin on this one to push?
What we try to do is more or less offer an EV car for the price of an ICE car of the same spec and the same size, more or less. Yeah. Right. And I think we got that right. We had very good feedback on the day, but also since then. We sold, I think it was 85 or 86, or took 86 orders on the first day.
Good grief.
Which for us is
phenomenal.
It's good, very good. It's been continued since then, also at quite a high pace. We're excited about it. And it's a youthful car. We mentioned the acceleration before that.
Let's go through that. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's like a sports car, this thing.
3.6 is
from 0 to 100.
On the performance car with a twin engine. But even the slowest car, if I can call it that, is 5.7 seconds, not 200, which is still very fast. It's a single motor is 200 kilowatts, twin motor 315 kilowatts. For a small car like that, it packs a punch. Yeah. But also some of the other features, some new safety features. So all the safety features that we have on our existing cars are in that car. So from XC90 down to 30, all the same features, but the 30 now has a couple of new ones, like when you open the door and there's a cyclist coming, the door will not open. It's just one. recognition of the speed signs and adjusting the speed according to that.
Oh, wow.
There's another one.
That's
so
cool.
A couple of more features.
Yeah.
The soundbar, which is also quite exciting for us, as opposed to having a whole bunch of speakers in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Smaller car with one soundbar in the front and then just different size speakers and amplifiers in that soundbar. So there's a couple of exciting things which are, it's all focused more towards the youth. And also yellow color. We haven't had a yellow car for 20 odd years. So this will be available in this car. And I think it's also signed that towards the youth market.
Yellow from Volvo. Wow. That is bold. So, what are you expecting from this car? Is this going to be your hottest seller ever?
I think, first of all, it's going to change the perception of the brand in South Africa, but also globally. I believe that we can attract some younger buyers with a price range that will fit their pocket as well. So that will increase our volumes. And then I think it's another car that will go towards the EV strategy that we've had. So by 2030, all our cars will be EVs. We started with the XC40 that we actually won the New Energy Car of the Year recently. We launched the C40 beginning of June, now with the EX30, then the EX90, and then all the other cars will follow. I think it's just a step towards that strategy.
So the EX30 is your entry-level EV, and the EX90 is your top-of-the-line premium EV product.
Correct.
Okay, and that was also launched not long ago.
It was launched last year, November.
Yeah.
There was a recent announcement that we're going to delay the production of the car.
Oh, is it?
So I think 4 or 5 months plus minus to be delayed. The hardware is ready, the software is ready, but the testing of the software takes time.
Right.
And it's a totally new architecture. It's single core computing, so it does require more testing. So maybe it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, these things really are computers on wheels now, aren't they? It's amazing to see the technology industry and the motoring industry really starting to combine.
And we've actually seen a interest from the tech magazines.
Yes, I'm sure.
In cars, and once they look at our cars, they look at the competitors as well.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more coverage of automotive news.
Yes.
Tech.
Well, we at TechCentral are covering electric cars more and more, and it's a very exciting area. But you also work very closely with Google, your in-car entertainment system. I'm not sure what it's called. Does it have a name?
I think it's Hey Google.
Hey Google. Okay.
It's an iCap system.
Yeah.
But it's a fully integrated Google system designed for automotive use. I think we were the first ones to use it. Since then, there have been 1 or 2 other manufacturers. I mentioned it earlier. It's a lot more intuitive than probably any manufacturer can have on their own.
Yeah.
It utilizes the whole Google search history. So coming here, put in the address of the name of the business park. Took me right here.
Brilliant. I mean, there's been a lot of debate in the motoring industry for a number of years now about whether car companies should be working so closely with the big tech giants. I think there was certainly a worry a couple of years ago that by integrating things like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay into the cars, the motor manufacturers are kind of giving away a lot of the value-added components and making the experience to be more controlled by a tech giant rather than by the car manufacturer. How much of a concern is that at Volvo? I mean, you clearly have a very close working relationship with Google, and so clearly that does not concern the company to a great extent. But other car companies are very wary of working with the tech giants. What is the sort of view inside Volvo about that topic?
I think from our side, you got to pick the things that you're going to focus on. So there's some things that you buy and some things that you will develop yourself. And to develop a top-of-the-range infotainment system is probably not one of our core priorities.
Or core competencies.
I think the competencies you can buy, but it'll take
time.
Take very long. What the cost is, and what is the benefit of competing with Google? You have to develop something better than that just to be able to compete, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a very good product. We'd rather focus on electrification, on the safety, and the whole user experience, including the infotainment system.
Yes.
How does one use it? How does it help the car?
Yeah.
So things like that is something we would like to focus on.
Yeah, absolutely. Something I meant to ask you about the EX30, and I can't ignore it, is the range. It's such an important question. What sort of distance are we looking at here?
So the entry level has got a single motor, 200 kilowatt battery, a 200 kilowatt motor. It's a range of 344 kilometers.
344, okay.
And then it goes up to 480 on the extended range.
That's on the top end model. How many SKUs or how many versions of this vehicle are there?
So there are 3 trim levels. There's the the base, the core. There's the Plus and the Ultra.
How much is the entry level one?
775, 900.
775, 900. Okay, and then there's a mid-tier version.
Mid one, and then the Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take the Ultra with the twin motor, with everything else, it's just under $1 million.
Just under $1 million. Okay, and the mid-tier, what are 800 and something?
It will be 850, 880, somewhere around there. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. Okay.
So I guess 780, 880, 980, 990.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Greg, before I let you go, let's look a little bit into the future. We are a tech publication, so I'd like to have a look at what's coming next. Self-driving cars, Volvo working on those. What can we expect in that regard? And what other cool tech is Volvo working on, to the extent that you can tell us, because I'm sure there's some secrets that you need to keep. But just some insight perhaps into where you think motoring is going to go in the next 5 years.
Yeah. So the specifics I can't talk about, but a lot of manufacturers said 5 years ago that by early 20s we're going to have self-driving cars, autonomous cars. We're a long way away from that, I think, for a fully autonomous car. But a lot of the features that are coming into the cars are, if you put them all together and you start building them up, they add up to what is really an autonomous car. So we started off with cruise control, which controls the speed. Now we've got adaptive cruise control, which then adjusts the speed to the car in front of you. We've got lane keeping. We're going to have lane changes. Put them all together, and you're getting very close to a car that can drive by itself in certain conditions. I think that's the one area that nobody has got right yet. Even Tesla, it's fully autonomous, but not everywhere. So in South Africa, a lot of the features are switched off on a couple of cars that we've got in the country. So I think it will go that way. Talking about having a full autonomous car, if you take South African driving habits, I think it's going to be very, very difficult to have an autonomous car that can predict what's going to happen next. And I think
with potholes and roads not painted properly.
Well, painting of roads is one thing. Driver behavior and the following distance and the gaps that we seem to fit into.
Yes.
On the highway. Taking
chances.
I think all that will need to be worked in. AI is coming. Maybe that's a way to go forward. With the introduction of LiDAR in the EX90, I think that will give us a lot of information that we need to try and program it into something that we can use on the open roads. Okay.
But for now, the tech is switched off, and it's...
there's no... And we don't talk about semi-autonomous cars. We talk about cars that have got certain features that I've mentioned. There's more coming, but it's the driver is still responsible for the car.
Do you think we're ever going to get to a point where we have like an Uber-type service that is... where the vehicles are self-driven, and you just hail an Uber, hop in the car without a driver, takes you where you're going, and we have these autonomous cars running in our cities, and perhaps there are dedicated lanes where only autonomous vehicles are allowed to go. I mean, how far away are we from that sort of future?
Autonomous cars, I think we're not that far away. The scenario you described. The problem comes in between having no autonomous cars and full autonomy for all the cars, let's say 30, 40 years time, whatever it is, right? That period in between where you have drivers who can make their own decisions and they're not rational always, and autonomous cars which expect some sort of predictability. And I think that's going to be the tricky part. And you mentioned separate lanes, that's a possibility. Separate parking lots where we can put a lot more cars into an area that you don't need to open the doors. That's still coming. But having autonomous cars driving together with the public, I think that will be a tricky one.
I've seen a few of those automated parking garages. I think there's one in Japan and some in Europe where you arrive and then the system, the building almost parks your vehicle in this massive skyscraper, and everything is packed in like sardines in a tin can.
Because once you have that, then the computer can work out which car you want to move efficiently to get the one in the middle out. And then we talk about things like if the cars are autonomous, then the lanes need to be a lot narrower. So maybe you can put 4 lanes instead of 3, which allows a freer movement. A lot of these things are being discussed, but full autonomous cars still a while.
And in terms of other technologies like in-car entertainment, and I know all car manufacturers are moving to these massive screens now. Some I'm sure Volvo has some of these types of screens in its more premium vehicles, but these screens that replace the entire dash. Where are we going with this? Are we at risk perhaps of building vehicles that are going to start to distract drivers rather than to help them reach their destination safely?
From our side, we've always spoken about technology not for the sake of technology, but to assist the driver. To make, first of all, to make it safer, make it more comfortable, make it more relaxing, help. So our technology will always go towards that. If it makes sense from a driving perspective, on any one of those, we'll introduce it. If it's just for aesthetics, we might stay away from that.
Right. Yeah. Go for the practical options. Greg Maruszewski is MD of Volvo in South Africa. Greg, thank you so much for sharing your insights with TechCentral's audience today. Much appreciated.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.